Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Murali from Teaching for Good, and welcome back to the 100 Days of Full Stack App Challenge. If you're just getting started, make sure to watch the video and review the welcome page. You can click on Get Started anytime to get to the welcome page, and you can watch the video as well as review this page. Today is day 1 of the challenge and also the beginning of our weekly sprint number 1. So let us go right ahead and review the plan for the first week. There are 5 days that we will count in the first week, and we will keep day number 6 and 7 as buffers that will allow you to catch up as well as do additional work that you need to support in this plan. So we will account only for 5 days in every week and 2 days just for you to fill that in as well as work through your examples and build the stuff. And there's so much packed into each of these days, so those 2 extra days will definitely help you. And if you get to spend extra time, then you may be able to wrap up much earlier. Then you can get to week 2 and move forward as well. So on day 1, the first day, which we'll call it as a discover, and the reason we call it as a discover, and we will continue to call day 1 of each weekly sprint as a discovery day. And this is following a concept called design sprint, and I will explain about it a little later. And on day 0, in the first video, in the introductory video, I explained the importance of coming up with an idea for a product or service that you are familiar with, you want to solve or you want to build. And we will extend that aspect in the discovery session as well. So we mentioned earlier that I want you to pick a problem that you want to solve. Just don't go with the example that I'm going to show you, but I want you to pick an example of that you would like to build. It could be a product, it could be a service, or it could be just an example, whatever you would like to build, as long as it is your idea that you own it. And the first thing that we want to do as part of day 1 is define the key problem that you would like to solve. What is the key essence of that problem that you would like to solve? This is really the most important step. We need to define the problem, and don't worry too much about defining every single aspect of it. Just focus on the key aspect of it. And it is very much possible that by the end of this challenge, you may be pivoting or changing your direction to solve a completely new problem as well. And it's pretty common across the board. So don't worry too much about spending lots of time in writing down every single detail about your problem. Just focus on the key element. What is the main problem that you would like to solve? And don't even worry about building a pitch deck or a business plan or a really long vision statement and all that stuff. Just focus on the problem that you would like to solve, and you should be able to explain about that problem to somebody probably in about 30 seconds. And that's why it's very key to just focus on the key element of the problem, not a lot of details yet. And once you identify that part, identify who will be the primary user that will use the product. And this distinction is important, particularly if you will be building a B2B product. The person or the user that will be paying for your product and doing that initial decision about your product is probably may not be the same that will be using the product. So don't worry too much about all those details at the moment. Just focus on who will be the primary user that will be using your product. This will allow us to quickly iterate and test it with that context, rather than trying to build something for lots of different use cases in the initial stages. So just like we were talking about earlier, you should be able to explain that key problem in about 30 seconds. That means you're just focusing on the really core element of the problem and identify who will be the primary user that will be using your product or service. And then define the future state. How does your solution, product or service is going to solve that problem? So here, by this time, we would like to be able to tell the story of how it will be different once our service is introduced. So we explain the key problem, we explain who will be the key user that will be using this product, and how different it will be if once our product is released, for example, which is pretty much explaining how we're going to solve it. Again, probably limit yourself to 30 seconds to under 2 minutes. And the previous two steps will help you to define it. And again, don't worry about getting a very accurate, polished pitch at this time. Broad brushstrokes is the keyword. It should be broad, simple, easy to go with. Don't spend too much time at all on this. So that's the day one exercise. Define the key problem you would like to solve. Identify one primary user that will be using the product, and define the future state, or what will your service will look like that offers a solution to that key problem that you identified. That's end of day one. And day two, we will start doing a little bit of research to understand if there are any similar problems or similar solutions to that problem already exist in the market. And this is why it is also important that I was asking earlier to pick a problem that you are passionate about, pick a problem that you would like to solve for yourself, because that will give you a lot of context already. You know the problem, you know what problem you're going to solve, and you know the details of what the solution will look like. It makes it really easy to understand and take it to the next step. But it doesn't mean that if you are solving a problem that you know about, or you're not totally familiar, but you just know that this problem exists and you would like to solve that problem, then you would spend a little bit more extra time to research about this. So either way, let us do some research on the problem space, find if there are any solutions that are already addressing this particular problem. If there are some solutions already addressing this problem one way or the other, review just one or two. Don't worry about doing an extensive research at the moment to identify every single product in the space. Just identify a couple of them, review them, and jot down a couple of gaps that you find in those products, because those will be your opportunities to differentiate yourself and take it to the market. So just jot down a couple of gaps. And if there are no similar products or similar solutions that are addressed in the problem space, then congratulations, because probably you may have found a new category of problems or a new problem space. Typically, this requires a little bit more extra research because there is nothing you can compare, that is nothing you can relate to. So it may need an extra bit of research, but this is a good problem to have. And also, since this is a new problem space, you may have to educate your users as well a little bit, so that they have to realize first that there is a problem and there is a solution that you're going to offer. So it's a little bit tricky to get to that first set of users, but still, this is a great opportunity that you could be the leader in that category, either creating a new category or become a leader in that category. So just go for it. Don't worry too much about, oh, there is no other product. Is there a market space? There's no product. Is it worth solving? All those kinds of questions. Don't worry too much about it. Just go for it. That's the end of day two. And on day three, we will quickly come up with a name. And don't worry again too much. Don't spend too much time about coming up with this brand name, branding, and all those stuff. Just don't spend too much time. because it's very unlikely that by the time you finish the challenge, you may be building something completely different, solving a completely different problem. So whatever name you pick probably may not go well with it as well. So don't spend too much time. Just come up with a simple name that you can use as your code word to be able to talk to other people. And again, don't worry about resisting your domain and all that stuff at the moment. You will do it later on once you get a few more stages and really figure out how everything will be turning out. So don't worry about branding, registration, and all this stuff yet. Just pick a name, a cool keyword that you can use as your code word for your program, the problem space, and the product and service that you're going to build. And the next step is to prepare a really very high level mockups, really, really rough sketches. Draw it on a whiteboard or draw it on a white paper. That is good enough. Don't worry about using sophisticated design tools like Figma and all that stuff. Sketching on a paper is good enough. And one more aspect is, do not create a mockup of every single screen that you can think of. Just focus on very broad strokes of first two screens and one screen, if that defines your solution to that problem. That is good enough. Really broad strokes and just one or two important screens. Don't go overboard and try to define everything. The next part is day 4, which is to come up with a very high level architecture and define the kind of architecture, what can support the solution that you're looking at, like whether it's a web application, whether it's going to be a mobile application, and what kind of services it require. Does it require just an API? Does it require some lot of backend services? Does it require AI and ML? Does it require lots of data to be processed, for example? Based on what that solution look like, again, very, very high level, identify what kind of architecture can support. The most important part while choosing this architecture is that architecture should support experimentation and iteration in a rapid way, which means it should be really easy to make a change and test it, iterate, make a change, test it, and iterate. And as part of the architecture, you will also identify the key services that you need for your step number 1. Again, don't go overboard and try to come up with all kinds of services you need. Just focus on that 1 or 2 key services you need to go to step number 1. And then appropriately pick up a technology stack. Again, pick the right technology stack for the solution that you're looking at. But if you're not sure or you have too many options to pick, just pick something that you're most comfortable with or something that you can learn quickly. And don't worry about picking the latest and greatest or cutting edge technologies that are out there or all the hype around. Just pick what will work for you. And then day 5, you will go ahead and create the base infrastructure so that you can set up your landing page or the first page or coming soon page if you're building a web application, for instance, and be able to deploy it. So this is by the end of this week, we want to identify a very high level solution and a base architecture and actually deploy it so that we have at least a coming soon page ready. And while building infrastructure, it is really important, don't do it via console. Try to build it with a tool that supports infrastructure as code so that it will make it really easy to make changes and redeploy this infrastructure. If you have to do it console, you will lose a lot of time every time you want to make a change. And again, go ahead and create a repo in GitHub and go with single repo. Don't worry about one repo for each service and all that stuff. Just go with a mono repo, which is good for a majority of use cases. So you're better off just setting it up as a mono repo. Mono repo is, the meaning of mono repo is that we will just create one repo, one repository in GitHub, and you just use the same repo to have multiple services, for example, as well as a UI. If you need other scripts, your infrastructure, everything is in just one repo, makes life so much easier for a long time to go and for most use cases. So don't worry about multi-repo and all this fancy stuff. Just go with one repo. You should be good to go. So those are the 5 days. And if you're able to complete these above steps, and remember, you have 7 days to finish this 5-day worth of work. So you will have a good foundation to start building next week. And if you finish all these 5 steps, you will have made a lot of progress already. So congratulations in advance. You will be on the right track by the time you finish it. So that's the plan for the first week. If you think it's too much, don't worry. Go with a pace that you're comfortable with. And if you're new to full stack or cloud, don't worry about jumping in without fully understanding everything. It is perfectly fine. Just get started. You will pick up a lot as you go. You don't need to know everything before you start. You can learn a lot on the go. And in the next video, I will walk you through the exact same steps in this plan, but I will start building a product, and I'm going to use that to illustrate these steps and walk you through so that you can build your product or service as well. So bye for now, and I will see you in the next video.